personally opted out of that. So that ability remains within the mayor's ability if they're appointed, but the policy reflects the regional board's direction to municipalities is to send their mayor as their primary delegate to the board.
Okay, thank you. Director Wally.
As much as I don't like to be argumentative, personally, I don't think the regional district really has any business meddling in municipal council's decisions. If you'll recall that John McDonald, when he was mayor, he sent other councillors to the regional solid waste and the hospital board and so on. The other thing is, this is a policy, it's not binding. I remember when Mr. Jakeway was the mayor of Campbell River, and Campbell River Council, I'm pretty certain, did whatever they could to make sure he wasn't the representative for the councillors. So I think it's up to council to decide what works for them. That's the democratic process. And yes, I think most frequently they would select their mayor, but sometimes they may have good reason not to, and I wouldn't want to send the message that this is bad policy or not the best policy. I think the best policy is to do whatever council wishes. So that's my feeling on it. I don't think really we as a regional district should be telling the municipalities what they should do.
Okay, further discussion? Director Dahl.
I think that we should be supporting the mayors. I don't think that what happened to Walter Jakeway was particularly correct. He was the elected mayor. The majority of the electorate that came out and voted for Walter Jakeway. And rather than accepting that their favorite candidate didn't get elected mayor, there was a group of councillors that got together and decided that they knew better than what the electorate did and undermined the process. And I don't think that that's correct. So I think that this motion, I know that I will support this motion, and I think that we should be supporting the mayor or mayors.
Thank you. So, all in favor? On receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried, and that policy CP 032, appointment of the municipal director, be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Director Colburn, Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Sorry? Oh, okay, thank you. Strathcona Accessibility Plan.
Move receipt that the report from the CAO be received.
Director Colburn, Director Wally, CAO.
Mr. Chair, Renee will speak to this.
Good afternoon. The report before you is to consider the approval of the Strathcona Accessibility Plan. The Accessible BC Act mandated that all public organizations establish accessibility committees, develop an accessibility plan, and provide a mechanism for the public to provide feedback and identify accessibility barriers. You may recall last year in response, the SRD partnered with member municipalities and the School Division 84 and Vancouver Island Regional Library to establish the Strathcona Accessibility and Inclusion Advisory Committee. Volunteer committee members were recruited in the spring of 2023 and appointed by the SRD board in August of 2023. With support from consultants, Untapped Accessibility, the partners drafted a draft accessibility plan and presented it to the advisory committee for review and feedback, and that feedback was incorporated into the plan that was attached to this report. In parallel with the creation of the plan, some of the implementation of the next steps has started, including the feedback mechanism is on the SRD's website as well as most of the partners' websites, and we do have some upcoming education for both staff and committee members happening in May. There is much work to be done to foster a more inclusive and accessible region. This plan is a starting point and allows the member municipalities, the partnering organizations, and the SRD to collaborate on an approach to address accessibility barriers while at the same time leveraging resources and expertise within the region. With the approval of the plan, the SRD, the member municipalities and the partners will be up to date and in compliance with the Accessible BC Act.
Any questions for Renee? Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Renee, for the report and the work of the committee into getting us to this place. The report indicated that there are potential financial implications upon endorsing the plan, and that some costs will be offset by available grants or funding opportunities. Is there an estimate on the annual costs which may not be covered by funding opportunities? And what are the next steps for accessibility plan upon board's endorsement?
In the plan, we talk about reviewing the barriers that are identified. So the partner organizations will review those barriers and determine what those next steps to eliminate the barriers are. And at that point, we would either bring project plans to the SRD board, apply for funding that might be appropriate for those. In the short term, the first piece that we were going to work on is awareness and education, and we were able to do that without a cost to the board. So you will see anything before there would be any financial commitment necessary to implement those projects.
CAO.
So just maybe to add to that, typically what happens, so if the board will remember, the province funded all local governments to do these accessibility plans, and that would be a requirement for applying for any grants. Typically, then they will open funding programs then, and you can take your accessibility plans, identify barriers that have, financial barriers to us and apply for programs. I don't believe those are out yet, but I believe that's the intent, or it historically has been the intent of funding these things. So our hope is that there'll be grants open and available to accommodate some of the challenges that have been identified in the plan.
Anyone else? On receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B, that the Strathcona Accessibility Plan attached to the April 19th, 2024 report from the CAO officer be approved.
So moved.
Director Colburn, Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Natural Resource Committee, amendment to the term of reference. That the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Mawhinney. Director Wally.
Mr. Chair,
Discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, so if the board remembers, we established a Natural Resource Committee. This is in conjunction with the Mount Waddington Regional District and the Alberni-Claycott Regional District. Our terms of reference identified appointing the chair and another member from each of the regional districts. Recently, myself and the chair, amongst some other members, were at AVICC. Myself and the chair were having some discussions with Mount Waddington and Alberni, and there was a desire for them to have a third member on the Natural Resources Committee. So because there was some desire for that, I don't think there's any harm in it. There's also going to be, probably at our first meeting, some discussion about the First Nations in joining this Natural Resource Committee. So this was always intended to be organic and grow by membership. So our recommendation here is that the regional district appoint or amend the terms of reference to include a third appointee from each regional district. And the board is happy to nominate an appointee for that.
Okay, on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B, that the terms of the reference of National Resource Committee be amended by deleting section 3.1 and substituting the following. The chair and two other members of each regional district shall be entitled to sit as members of the committee. Each regional district shall decide the members to be appointed to their term of membership.
Moved.
Director Lott, Director Chapman, discussion? Director Colburn?
It says appointed and their terms of membership. Should it be to their terms of membership? Is there's a term to sit, or will each regional district say, we want ours to sit for 1 year, these ones sit for 4 years? How does that work?
CAO?
I think it's our intent that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the word "and" is deliberate rather than "to."
Thank you.
Are we appointing someone today, Mr. Chairman?
We are.
So I think if the motion passes, then
passes, yes.
it'd be natural for the board to nominate an additional member. Just for the board's reference, obviously the chair is Director Baker, and the appointee so far that's already been appointed is Director Davis. So no sense nominating either one of those two.
The motion hasn't been passed yet, right? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Now we need a motion for an additional. Director Chapman?
Chair, I move that Director Dahl be nominated for that.
Second.
Director Senate, second. Discussion,
Put up
Director
Director
Woolley?
Mawini for a nomination, please.
Thank you. Private ballot? Secret ballot?
Just get a second on that, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second, please? I'll second that. Director Mawini, second that. Discussion? Director Mawini?
Thank you, Chair. Sounds like we're going to have a secret ballot, so I think maybe I would like to speak to why I think that the director for Area C would be a good choice for the Natural Resources Committee. Area C is 53% of the area of the entire regional district, over 10,000 square kilometers of islands and inlets. There's a lot of natural resource activity within its boundaries. Mosaic operates 3 blocks of TFL of TFL 47 with Area C, and Western Forest Products also operates a TFL within Area C. There are many woodlots, countless aquaculture tenures, and investigative wind and hydropower tenures. In my role as director, I've participated in multiple engagement sessions with the province as they build the biodiversity framework. These sessions, thank you, have had a diversity of voices, extraction companies and conservation organizations, and I have raised considerations pertaining to local government. I'm this board's representative to the Marine Planning Partnership, which focuses on sustainable economic development, the well-being of coastal communities, and the marine environment. It is a co-led process between 17 First Nations and the province, which meets twice a year. I have lived experience. I've worked in natural resources, on a fish farm, and as a tree planter. I believe that sustainability is key to wise use of natural resources, and that advocating for processing and manufacturing will maximize benefits from the natural resources of the North Island. In summary, I believe I am an excellent candidate for the Natural Resources Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Dahl, do you have anything to add? Or not add, but to speak?
I'm not any of those. Just to be honest,
No, be honest. Okay,
I think the Campbell River is more resource-based than what Quadra Island is. We've got literally thousands of people employed in those resources that need to be considered. We've got hundreds of businesses that are dependent on those resources, as are many of the other communities and municipalities that are sitting around this table. So that's why I'm letting my name stand.
okay, thank you. Everybody put their ballot in the box, please. Edith will go around. This is the, haven't used them in years, yeah. 2 in the same meeting.
I'm trying to improve. I'm conscious of the errors that I'm making, so that is an improvement.
because Edie will still have to take the two remote.
Okay.
So it could be another 5-10 minutes.
Okay, opposed to taking another break, we're going to move on and come back to this. Do I have everybody's attention? Director Colburn? Just, what are you counting?
How many things we have left if we could move along? Thank you.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, opposed to counting, let's just go 1 through 1. Let's go. Okay, so we're going to move on. Regional Fire Administration Support Service.
Move receipt of the report.
Thank you. Director Wally, second. Discussion.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, just a reminder that several months ago, this board committed to establishing a regional fire admin service. Those were two positions, a manager logistics and training and a fire assistant position. That service was embedded in the general government service that already exists. So this is not about that. This is the execution of hiring those positions. So with the original intent of the regional district trying to establish these two positions being employees of the regional district, we've encountered a number of challenges in that effort. We have collaborated with the City of Kamloops River. Some of the challenges that we had is that to make this role efficient and effective for everyone, including Kamloops River, that the logistics and training manager needed to be an on-call position and give direction to unionized employees. That created a fairly significant challenge for it being a regional district employee. So therefore, we worked with the City of Kamloops River and the fire chief to establish a contractual agreement that represents our ability to still have control, oversight, authority on it while the day-to-day operations direction comes through the City of Kamloops River. So staff is recommending that in exercising the hiring of these two positions, we do that through a contract agreement with the City of Kamloops River, and the two positions are City of Kamloops River employees. And I'll assure you that every intent of executing these positions and the roles and what they do is exactly the same. It's just done through a different pathway than initially anticipated.
Okay, we have Director Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to check. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I was initially in support of this, but I've been giving a lot of thought, and I've been talking to my staff. In Tassus, we're pretty highly functional in terms of our fire service. The main thing we need to do is replace our fire hall, which we're in the process of doing. And we've hired a new fire chief. I think we've always been sort of up to date in terms of our reporting and requirements and the standards that we have to meet. For us in Tassus, we don't really see a benefit from joining this fire service. And in fact, it's going to amount to a duplication of services. And it just seems to be bureaucratic waste. And I realize how this process first started with the issues in Quadra Island, and they seem to have been rectified. So I'm not sure if creating another layer of bureaucracy is helpful at this point. So I'm going to be voting against it.
So if I can just bring some clarity, Director Davis, for that. So the issue didn't start in Quadra. The issue started with a report that we did with all fire halls throughout the regional districts. And what this is providing a resource. We have what, again, I've referred to as gold standard in Kamloops River. They're a community of 40,000 people. They have decades worth of resources experience in the department. Those cannot and are not duplicated in the smaller individual halls. This is a resource to provide those things that cannot and are not being done to free up resources for the fire halls to respond to emergencies. So this is not about the service. The service has been established. This is about now how we execute this service. If there's a more or less need on the individual halls to access the resources in there, that's great. But I think it's short-sighted to have one individual in a fire hall say, oh, geez, we don't need this right now. This is, again, a resource, and it shouldn't be an individual saying, I've got this. This is a resource available to communities. There is no additional cost to it. There's no tax requisition on top of our general government that we already have to access this. So what this report is focusing on is how we're going to deliver it, not the establishment of that service. That ship has already sailed.
Director Colburn, then Director Lott.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to see this come back to the table. I think that this is a beautiful use of resources. I know that fire departments in general have this sense of camaraderie, and they talk to each other and they train with each other all departments all over BC. I think that this is an augmented support, and I think that although we are in a very, very different position today in the Zavalis Fire Department, I still think that that support provided to back the smaller fire halls out would not, I don't think that anyone would see more help and a larger resource pool with expertise as something that is necessarily bad. That's just from my opinion, from my point of view.
Director Lott.
Thank you, Chair. I read through the report, and one of the things that jumped out at me and jumped out at my staff and the fire department was the allocation of support. Our concern was that when we seen that 70-30%, it seemed like we wouldn't be getting much support at all, because basically 30% of that full-time employee's time would be about 600 hours divided between 7 remote stations. We average that out to about 85 hours on average per, each small station throughout the SRD. And that was significantly less support than we had anticipated that we'd be receiving through this initiative. So as we look at this, I'm really concerned about the allocation of the resources, of this human resources. I see this person as being basically an employee for the city of Campbell River in the duty roster, and then having 70% of their time going to Campbell River and 30% going to the rest of the small communities in the SRD. And I believe that the support is required more in the small communities that don't have a lot of resources to call on, because they're mostly dealing with volunteers. So my concern is not so much the service, but the allocation of the time.
So if I can address that, Mr. Chair. So the split on the 70-30 is Campbell River's paying 70% of the budget of that. So we take 70% allocation and then 30% throughout the other fire halls. Now there's a greater and lesser need throughout the 30%. Just to give you some relative to what value and access you're getting, Gold River is paying $5,800 annually for this. So that's a very, very tiny amount of contribution. You're also getting an economy of scale through. You may break it down through, this is going to be a little more organic and fluid throughout the 30% based on the needs of the different halls. You might get more or less in a certain year based on your desires and needs. But there's a similar service that is going to be provided to Gold River than it is Tassus and Zavalis. So that 30% is a combined resource for what you all need the same. So it's not like that person has to go something specific for Gold River, the same thing, something specific for Tassus, and the same thing for Zavalis. They're going to have the same need, and so they're going to pool that 30% and provide you really more economy and value through that allocation, because you're gonna more share the 30% and pay for in Gold River 3% per se. So it's really a way of finding economies through the resources that we have through the Campbell River Department, and then allocating that out at a very, very tiny cost to, for example, Gold River. Your investment through general government is $5,800. You're going to see much, much greater value in that than you're contributing, and that's a very small contribution.
Follow on through the chair to this. So what you're saying is that even though it's only allocated 30% for the 7 stations that are in the SRD that are in small communities, that we can access that resource as much as we think that we need based on what the demands are in our particular communities. It's not going to be capped at 30%, sorry, your 600 hours is spent,
Yeah, no,
and we're done.
No, it's going to be more fluid, but let's say, for example, you have in the Gold River Hall a need for some specific training, and the Tassus Hall and the Zabalas Hall is going to have the same thing. Those are going to be done at the same time. So there's going to be economy of scale. So your resources in the 30% are pooled. So you're getting more than your hour for hour contribution for that.
Okay.
Director Wally.
Yes, to staff, I have a couple questions in the report that I didn't completely understand. First of all, who is actually hiring these two individuals and paying their salary directly? Is it Campbell River or is it us?
It's a combination. So the hiring will go through the HR manager through the City of Campbell River, but we will be on the interview process for that. So it's
All right, and who will directly sign the checks of these two individuals?
Well, Campbell River will sign their checks and they will send us an invoice and we will pay for that. Similar to what we've done in other resources, like I put in the report, IT, for example. IT would come and provide the resources, City of Campbell River would pay them and we would pay them back.
All right, now the reimbursement that we make to Campbell River, is that 30%?
Yeah, so
right.
we have a pre-established.
So let me get this straight. Campbell River is going to pay 70% of these individual salary, and then we're going to pay.
No, sorry. The Campbell River will pay them 100%,
100%.
and we'll reimburse 100%.
Oh, we're going to reimburse 100%. Okay,
Well,
I understand.
It's cost neutral.
Yeah, I understand. All right, and then the other problem I have is the statement in the report that says the Campbell River Fire Chief and the SRD Manager Protective Service shall share a dual role in direction and oversight. Now, I spent my whole career as an employer, and I think it's problematic that an employee has two different managers. It's got to be one or the other. Otherwise, in my experience, it just doesn't work. The person who signs the check is really going to be the manager.
Well, in practicality, what it's going to happen is the Campbell River Fire Chief is going to give day-to-day direction to the staff. The manager here, Sean Koopman, is going to oversee at a higher level the direction to make sure the halls outside of Campbell River are getting the resource. So, yeah, you're not going to have a dual role. They're going to show up in the morning and one boss says one. They're going to report to the Campbell River Fire Chief, and Mr. Koopman's going to oversee that what needs to be attended to through the other halls is done through in collaboration with the Campbell River Fire Chief.
Yeah, I understand the intent of it. I think the intent is valuable. It just, in my experience, if the fire chief's paid by Campbell River and these two individuals are paid directly by Campbell River, really Campbell River has the oversight. And sure, we can make recommendations and suggestions, but we're really not running very much.
Well, it's two things. It's a contract position, so if it didn't work out and the contract terms end, you could pivot in a different direction. So the other thing, though, is when we talk about the day-to-day direction, it is the Campbell River Hall that has this expertise, and that's why we're leaning on this, right? Because we can gain an economy of scale of pooling all these resources and expertise and knowledge that Campbell River has and distribute them out. So that is really the intent, that we want that to come from the Campbell River Hall, because that's where the fire professionals are, and those are the resources that the other halls are going to need.
Okay, anyone else? Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I forgot, Director Rice.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I also have concerns, so I thank you from all the comments from directors. I know that for my area, my biggest concern in listening to everything is ultimately who at the end of the day is paying the bill, because, as you know, Area D is billed a percentage of fire services based on their operational costs. So I wouldn't want to see a double increase in terms of my costs to Area D. The other concern that I had was that I'm confused why the Oyster River Fire Department has been brought in on this. They're in the Comox Valley, and they have their own, they're self-sufficient. They don't need to be a part of this service. So I'm confused why that decision was made, and why was that decision made without transparency and public engagement to the Oyster River Fire Department?
Well, there's nobody included contractually in the agreement that has any obligation. What we're trying to provide is a resource within the regional district, and that's within Area D's regional district. So there's no taxation requirement, there's no obligation. There was consultation with all the fire chiefs in the preliminary report, and there was complete buy-in from them. So if they feel, for example, the Oyster River feels that there's nothing that they can draw from the resources from the Campbell River Fire Hall, they're doing absolutely everything, then they don't have to draw on the resources and those will be spread out. But I'm going to tell you an example for Area D, a benefit for that is we have two arrangements in Area D. One of them is Campbell River provides for what I'm going to call the north end of Area D. We have, as you know, a contractual agreement from Campbell River to provide those sources. So in this scenario, Campbell River has, amongst other things, a need for another duty officer. Without this position, in theory, they would go hire these two positions, pay 100% of those costs, and transfer a percentage on to the Area D and just collect that via the contractual agreement that we have. That is within their authority to do. What this does is instead of them hiring those positions and taking whatever percent they want and put on Area D, is that they are gaining an economy of scale, spending 70% of the money on these positions and therefore transferring less costs onto the Area D contract. So they need these positions. So you either pay 100% of them paying for them, or you pay a fraction of the 70%. And in my mind, providing a dual role of having a resource, if they want it or not, we're not forcing anyone into it, of accessing the resources that the Campbell River Fire Department has, and lowering the total operational cost that Area D pays for anyways. In my mind, this is a no-brainer that you have a financial and resource advantage to participating in this.
One more question. Is there an opportunity to remove the Oyster River Fire Department from that agreement?
Again, they're not in the agreement. They're identified as, if they wanted, we'll provide the resources. There's no obligation to them. There's no obligation to anyone in here. So again, based on individuals, I would think it would be short-sighted to remove a resource available to anyone when they don't have an obligation to that.
Anyone else? Are you going to follow
And
up?
one more follow-up question. The concern is that these fire departments think that there's going to be an associated cost to them.
So,
And that message does not seem to have been, again, in my mind, what I've heard is that from the lack of transparency and the lack of public engagement, they feel that there's going to be an additional cost to them. So how does that get clarified to all of the other departments that are feeling the same thing?
well, I appreciate that, but Mr. Koopman has been in communication with all the halls, all the chiefs. We have had transparency through creating the service, but and I can assure you there is no cost to these halls. So we can take that information from you, and Mr. Koopman can go meet individually with them and assure them of their lack of obligation and cost. That is not difficult to do. And anyone listening to this, hearing me, there is no cost to these fire halls.
I know that in my community, the chief was very excited about this and definitely 100% supported it. Okay, so Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to come at this from a different point. In my earlier years, I was a volunteer firefighter for 9 years. And the best thing we can do for fire departments is to protect those who are volunteering or being paid for their services. One such thing is training. Training is crucial. This keeps people safe. we can share resources. Not every training officer is all whole, complete. Many paid departments bring in specialists to train, especially in hazardous and dangerous goods. The other part of that is purchasing equipment and various, like for instance, what's called turnout gear or the fire protective suits that they wear. I mean, I think Gold River would probably save that $5,800 in one purchase of half the crew in safety gear. So there are, bulk purchases are really usually well thought of, especially for suppliers, because if they're going to tool up and provide something, they want to really get into it and they'd rather make 20 than 4. They get some economy of scale doing that. So I think this is good. And also on the training and record keeping, if there is an injury, the particular fire department needs to show to WCB that the training was carried out and is documented. And if you don't have that documented, then WorkSafe BC has some pretty big hammers that start at $50,000 for not providing proper record keeping and training for firefighters. So, it does get serious when you start a fire department, whether it's volunteer or paid. There are some obligations on behalf of each organization that has it. I don't see this as this regional district taking over fire departments. I just see this as augmentation and help and assistance to those departments who are smaller and have limited resources. So I think this is a good thing for fire services throughout the whole regional district.
Thank you. Director Jack.
Yeah, thank you. I think our concern is we have no department, we have no structure to place any equipment or anything like that for firefighting. And with that being said, we've applied for numerous funding for training or trying to acquire a building or a fire truck or anything like that. And we've always been denied because we do not have a fire hall, and us being so remote, it's been very difficult in acquiring any services in regards to firefighting or anything like that. And we have things that are currently being developed, but like I said, funding has always been difficult for us to access because it was always said that we don't have a fire hall and to train anybody up in or anything like that. So that's where we stand right now, and then it's basically we have no service at all in regards to firefighting.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Director Jack. So a couple things to bring to that. One, the role of this position can help advocate for the First Nation in that. And second, the financial commitment to the KCFN on this regional logistics, these two positions, is $17 a year. That's total. So, I mean, the value goes without saying. I was inspired, if I can, Mr. Chair, to make one comment based on Director Chapman's.
Through the chair to Director Jack, I would encourage you to check with your Director of Health and Safety. A trailer full of structural protection unit equipment, so trailers, hoses, pumps, should have arrived in Hoopsitas a couple weeks ago, and these are positions that could assist with training on that.
So just...
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I forgot to mention that we had just received that, and so that's a start. Thank you.
So again, again, on the heels of Director Chapman's comments, I want to remind the board that we had, maybe it was a year ago, when we had issues about the operational deficiencies of the Cortez Hall. One of the conditions, because of the liabilities that we had encountered with Cortez Hall, that the establishment of this position was required to ensure that all the liabilities of the Cortez Hall have met. So we will, if we do not hire this position, the board's position on funding the Cortez Fire Department is going to be challenged. And I don't know how we figure that out.
What were those specific liabilities?
Well, that was in the what was the report? I can't remember the name of the report, but all the deficiencies that were raised, whether they were all founded or not, it was a operational liability and insurance issue for the regional district, and the regional district's position on moving forward was to establish regional fire administration to provide support and assurance that all the regulations were being met. So if the position is not supported, I don't know where that leaves us with the Cortez Fire Hall funding by this board.
Okay, still on receipt, Director Mwini.
Thank you, Chair, for the chance to weigh in. It seems like everyone has something to say about fire protection today. So Quadra Island receives fire protection from the South Quadra Fire Improvement District, which was established in 1960. And that fire improvement district is not related to the Strathcona Regional District. Yesterday, I met with the Quadra Island Fire Chief, Chief Clendenning, and discussed the report and the service agreement. The chief was clear that the Quadra Department does not require or desire administrative support, and doing so would add a level of complications to the operation of the Quadra Island Fire Department. And the chief explained to me that when Sean Koopman reached out to the Quadra Fire Chief some time ago about the support service, she did support that the SRD's small fire departments received the support they needed. However, and until yesterday, it hadn't been explained what a regional service was. So with the service costing probably between $350,000 and $400,000 a year, Area C's contribution over the 5 years of the agreement will be $186,000 of tax dollars, which could be much better spent directly on the operations of the Quadra Fire Department. The Quadra Fire Department chief and deputy chief are licensed and provide training. I think that as in this service agreement, it talks about that will provide administrative support to the following fire departments. Leaves a bit of a question over suggesting that the fire chief on Quadra hand over administrative and records management and training functions to an off-island and unrelated fire department. I'm concerned that that may undermine the chief and the successful independence of the Quadra Island Fire Department. So, yeah, I guess those are my thoughts, and maybe there needs to be more communication with the fire departments, or maybe we need to table the item in time to have more consultation. I'm curious what the rest of the board thinks.
Well, if I can, Mr. Chair, it's just absolutely not true that the position is undermining the authority of any fire chief throughout the regional district. This is a position that is going to create additional resources. So any fire chief out there that is expressing concern that it is going to undermine their authority, that is 100% not the case. That is just completely unfounded. I don't know where that comes from, but that is just not true.
Well, I think that was my interpretation of the service agreement. That wasn't words that came from the chief, just to be clear.
100% say there's no possibility for that. There's no authority for that. Like on Quadra Island, for example, we have no legislative authority to do anything. It's a resource-based service there. And even though I'm not a fire professional, I've certainly dealt with the Campbell River Fire Department for years, and I find it unimaginable that a department their size, with the expertise, the resources they have, the amount of community that they serve, that there wouldn't be anything that would be of value to a small fire hall on Quadra Island. That just puzzles me. I don't know how that's possible. But
Director Von Esch and then Director Chapman. No, we got Director Davis first.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, through to the CAO. So I just want to be clear about this. Like, for the village of Tassus, what are our costs going to be per year to be part of this service?
The tax requisition is 2 cents per thousand. So that has already been adopted by the board. It's in the financial plan. There is no additional cost to it. That is already embedded in general government. It's 2 cents per thousand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have Director Von Esch, then Director
Just
Colbert.
on whole numbers for you, Director Davis, it's $1,700 a year total for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I do have some issues with this, as a number of people here obviously around the table have. One is, it seems, sort of the higher level, when you look at the beginning of the report, it's around like supporting these fire departments and giving them administrative services. But when you dig into the terms of agreement, there's words that like, providing direction, which seems like it is taking authority away from local fire departments. For certainly on Cortez, when we went through those issues a year and a half ago, we doubled the fire department's budget. We, put in all the places, the fire department put in all the necessary staffing positions to be a successful fire department, and the budget has already doubled, and the fire department has already hired all of the people to do all of the things that this service is requesting to be provided. And I think the big question for us today is, this is a $2 million question that we're asking. Do we want to spend $2 million over the next 5 years on providing this service?
That question has already been answered.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
I'm, and 70% of that is coming from Campbell River, and it seems like Campbell River Fire Department is really strong, and they actually don't need this support. They've got those things in place. And I do have concerns around the cost and the providing what's seeming like taking direction and directing the fire departments rather than providing support. Thank you.
So just want to add on the heels of that, after our conversation, Mr. Koopman spoke with the fire chief of the Cortez Hall, and he is 100% in support of the resource.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Koopman also asked the fire chief to contact me and have a conversation, and I can tell you that the services are already in place here, and that he's not 100% in support.
Call the question. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, let's call the question. We're on receipt still. All in favor of receipt? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. And B, that the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to execute a 5-year agreement for the provision of the Fire Department Fire Administration Support Service outlined in April 19, 2024, report from the CAO.
So moved.
Director Colburn. Director Chapman. Discussion. All in favor? Oh, did you? I'm sorry. Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question about the contract. It says consistent reporting from the fire chief to the regional district, and I was just wondering about adding to the contract a minimum reporting schedule, maybe quarterly or more frequently, because an annual report could be considered consistent, but perhaps not provide adequate information to the SRD.
I think that could be taken as direction. I'm not sure we have to include it in the agreement, but certainly if the board wants more frequent reporting, that's not going to be difficult to do.
I'd like to, I personally think that if it's embedded into the service agreement, it will be contractual and therefore more likely to happen. Thank you.
Okay, so where are the 5-year
What would you like to
Pardon
see
me?
an amendment that says included quarterly reporting?
I would say, yeah, quarterly or more frequently, but I think quarterly or more would be adequate for me. I do lean to like Sean Koopman or yourself to ask, but I think that
Quarterly sounds reasonable.
I'll second that amendment.
On the amendment? Okay, motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed? We have Director Sinnott, Director Von Esch, Director Wally.
Yeah, it was on the amendment. So you made it, don't vote against it. Yeah. So we're just voting on the amendment to add the quarterly
Add the
report.
quarterly. Okay, to add the quarterly, we're voting on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? For quarterly reporting.
We don't require our fire department to report quarterly to us. I would bet that none of their fire departments report quarterly to them. Like rural areas, so I don't know why we would have a different, I don't know why we would have different requirements.
Can you use your microphone, please?
I don't know why we would have different requirements for this when none of our fire departments report quarterly currently. So what would be the purpose for making this particular position in the fire protection reporting quarterly? I just don't see any benefit to that whatsoever.
Okay, Director Colburn?
As a member municipality, our fire department reports to us every single month. So I don't think that quarterly, seeing, we've been asked for support from this department for this service, I don't think that that's an unreasonable ask. And even if that came through our protective services coordinator, that would be fine as well as a touch point that they have been conversing.
Anyone else? Director Senate?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is to amend the contract, which I'm not in favor of because it's just going to delay the process. And really what we control is our own staff. And if you want Mr. Koopman to make a report, it's actually we're asking the CAO to assure us of certain things being asked. And if he wants to delegate that to Mr. Koopman to make the report to us, that's the proper motion in my view, instead of asking for this to be done in the contract, which then has to go back to the city and then has to be renegotiated, which I think is not really necessarily going to win at the end of the day.
Thank you. Director Mawhinney, then Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I maybe wasn't clear. I feel like I'm not asking for Sean Koopman to report to the board quarterly on that, but I do think that this service agreement is between the SRD and the city of Campbell River. And I think that ensuring that there is quarterly reporting or at a minimum from the fire person, people that are providing services to the SRD to Sean Koopman I think that has value.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, if the mover is okay with it, how about we vote on the contract as is? And if you want to make a second motion that the manager of protective services report on the regional fire service on a quarterly basis, we can just have a vote on that separate instead of embedding it.
I just want to make sure that
Microphone, please.
Sorry, I'm trying to ensure that there is consistent, timely reporting from the Campbell River Fire Department to protective services.
Okay, I can assure you that Mr. Koopman will be in communication weekly with the fire department, not quarterly. That will not be an issue. So if you're concerned about communication between the Campbell River Fire Department and Mr. Koopman, they're going to be constantly talking. So if that's what your concern is, I don't think the motion to amend the agreement is necessary.
Okay.
Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, no, you are understanding me correctly. The fact, as I did read the service agreement, and it doesn't have a time frame for reporting, and I felt like maybe that would be helpful.
I would say the reason not for time frame because they're going to be in constant communication.
Director Chapman?
Your Worship, I was going to suggest something similar to what our CAO has suggested. We have a contract. It's up to the CAO to administer that contract. The CAO, in his wisdom, may decide it's a monthly report from Mr. Koopman. But I don't think we should be putting in a contract as to how the CAO should be administering that contract. It's up to the CAO and his discretion.
Okay, so we're voting on the amend. Pardon me?
Director Mo, based on, I guess, my new understanding that, do you want to rescind that motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine to rescind
all
it.
right.
if
And I
you're- if
understand
you
what
feel-
you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
So the main motion, Mr. Chair.
The main motion,
Already have a mover and seconder.
we already have a mover and seconder, we had discussion. We have all in favor of the main motion. Those opposed? We have Director Rice, Director Wally, Director Von Esch, and Director Mawini, and Director Davis. And Director Jack.
6 opposed.
6 opposed. 7-4, the motion is carried. Okay, request for financial assistance from Strathcona Wilderness Institute. The report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And B, that the board approve a grant for Strathcona Wilderness Institute in the amount of $3,000 to assist with the cost associated with core operations to be paid from electoral area D, grant in aid budget.
Move recommendation.
Director
Second.
Rice, Director Mawini, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Before we go to the bylaws, we're going to jump back. We're going to go back in time to get the vote.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the board, the vote on the appointment to the Natural Resources Committee, Director Dahl has been appointed to that committee.
Can we have his people contact his people later?
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you. Okay, bylaw number 522, Cortez Island Dog Control Bylaw. With the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Vonish, Director Wally, discussion? Director Vonish?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just this is the end of a quite a big process where we received a petition to put in a dog control service. It went back to the community through an AAP process, and 221 people voted or wrote in against the service, which is almost 20% of the island. And although this is a divided issue on Cortez, I'm going to be supporting the results of this AAP and declining further movement on it.
Thank you. Anybody else? All in favor, receipt. Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Bylaw.
I'd like to move option B, that the regional district decline to seek elector assent by voting for bylaw number 522 at this time.
Director Wally, second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Okay, bylaw 538, 539, OCP amendment, rezoning application. The report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Rice? Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And bylaw number 538, being the bylaw to amend the Ocean River Butter Lake Official Community Plan, now be introduced and read for the first time.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice? Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Is that a discussion? No? All in favor? Excellent. Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And bylaw 538 to be given second reading.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice, Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And bylaw 539, being the bylaw to amend zoning regulation application to electoral area D, be introduced and read for the first time.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice, Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And that an in-person public, sorry, I jumped. And bylaw 539 be given second reading.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice, Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Do you want the honors there, Director Rice?
I'll do the other one, that an in-person public hearing to consider bylaws numbers 538 and 539 be scheduled immediately following the public hearing for bylaw number 546 on Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024, at the Strathcona Regional District Boardroom located at 990 Cedar Road, Campbell River, BC, and that the holding of the public hearing be delegated to the electoral director.
Director Wally, second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Bylaw 545 and 546, Peel Electoral Areas A, zoning bylaw, that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Thank you. Director Vanesh, second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Chair, I move that an in-person public hearing to consider bylaw 545.
I thought you were
I
injured.
move
for a second.
that an in-person public hearing to consider bylaw number 545 be scheduled for 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday, May 22, 2024, in Strathcona Regional District Boardroom located at 990 Cedar Street, Campbell River, BC, and that an in-person public hearing be scheduled to consider bylaw 546 immediately following the public hearing on bylaw 545, and that the holding of the public hearings be delegated to electoral area A director.
Second.
Oh, that was double. Okay, we'll give that to Director Rice. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Bylaw 548, Cortez Island Community Hall funding. Report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, Director Vanesh, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Vanesh,
Move that bylaw number 548, being a bylaw to amend the Cortez Island Community Hall service, now be introduced and read for a first time.
Second.
second, Director Mawhinney, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. C,
That the move that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 548 be given second and third readings.
Director Mawhinney, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. D,
And I move that bylaw number 548 be authorized for approval on the basis of consent of the participants in accordance with S349 of the Local Government Act.
second. Director Mawhinney, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaw 549, electoral area compensation. Report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Colburn,
Second.
second, Director Mawhinney, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Director Rice is opposed. Anybody else? Motion is carried. Director Mawhinney, do you want to take the honors?
That bylaw number 549, being a bylaw to amend the scope of meetings for which electoral area directors are entitled to claim compensation, now be introduced and read a first time.
Okay, do I have a second? I'll second it. Director Lott, discussion. Director Chapman.
Chair, a question I have is, how are electoral area directors compensated? How is it funded? I can't remember from our financial plan. Is it the rural directors from one pool, or does each electoral area itself fund each director separately?
It's funded, if I may, Mr. Sheriff, through the EA admin. So it's funded by the electoral areas based on requisition and funded into their EA admin service, not from general government.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so they pool those funds.
yes.
And they're paid out of that.
And
So
the
there's-
majority of the funding comes from Area D? Is that correct?
They would be, I wouldn't say the majority, they're the largest contributor. Quadra Island is quite close, and then Cortez is a little less than that, and the valley is a little less than that. The
Valley.
The valley?
Area.
So Director Wally is the most generous.
We're still here.
Motion on the floor for B already.
Okay, got a motion, second. Director Sinnott.
Yes, just for clarity, I know that we had some adverse press reaction to this, and it implied that the entire board was being scooped up in this change in the compensation. Where do we find on our SRD website clarity onto the remuneration expenses for each director, so we can direct people who might be inquiring the impact of this on us?
Yeah, well, we have a few things. I wouldn't call them direct, but there's obviously the SOFI report, there's the budget, and our, what I would call our, more readable budget book. But if it's a desire of, we also have that we publish claims on our website, but we don't exactly have a link to go, here's how they're paid and this is where it comes from. I mean, if it's the board's desire to bring more transparency to that, we can, but if folks are concerned, let's say from the municipalities that the EA directors funding is coming out of that, we can certainly create something that dispels that myth, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, that'd be exactly it, something simple and transparent. I think people who we serve would like to know exactly the compensation. That's usually the norm.
Right. Okay. Director Wally.
I was just going to mention there's also electoral area administration bylaw that's available for the public to look at.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Director Rice is opposed. C, Director Mawhinney. No, this is C.
I can read C if you'd like. That the rules be suspended and bylaw number 549 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Second was Director Colburn. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Director Rice is opposed. Electoral areas only. Sorry, I didn't mention that. We'll say it again. Electoral areas only for D.
That bylaw number 549 being electoral area director supplemental compensation bylaw 2019 amendment number 4 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Pradesh, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Director Rice is opposed. Motion is carried. Correspondence.
Move receipt of the correspondence from April 19th from the Island Coastal Economic Trust regarding provincial investment to foster regional economic development and collaboration.
Does anybody need any correspondence pulled? No? Everybody's good? Second was Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? On receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Sabella Slope Hazard. Director Colburn.
So the report from
Move
Director
receipt of the report.
Do I have a second? Director Wally, discussion. Director Colburn.
So this is, the reason I hesitated is because this is not a report from me necessarily. This is a report from our CAO at the village to our village council. That's what this is. Just to kind of catch you up. So a little bit of background. We did a floodplain mapping exercise earlier, I think that was 2018, early in the year. Boom, wildfire. So 8-month evacuation of 27 properties, 20 at the end. Slope hazard assessment was done in correlation with, so our floodplain mapping then became our slope stability kind of report, is we had to pivot. Then we got dollars for, after the aftermath, we got dollars for mitigation for fencing project in debris flow areas. That went from 3 items of 3 different fencing projects down to 2 now. We've just had a really hard time with this capacity-wise. We had to apply for a extension on our grant from UBCM. There is a grant in for a regreening of the slope that is, in the works but still faces a lot of hurdles and hiccups. Essentially, what we're asking for today is for the responsibility of the slope of this Crown land to lie with who it belongs with. It belongs to the province. I don't know if any of you heard me at ABICC talk about, I had a resolution there about the province can give us money to fix things on their property, all they'd like. That doesn't help our capacity. So I'm coming here to the board, to you, to ask for next steps, an elevation of our voice, if you will, up to the powers that be. I'm open to any ideas on how that might happen from staff, from the Protective Services manager, although I know that he has been trying his best to advocate on our behalf. We've exhausted all of the tools that are available to us, and I'm not sure that anyone is listening.
Anyone else? Director Vonage? No? Director Cole, or Director Senate, and then Director Lott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So are you looking for some sort of resolution that we get a report from staff to come back with options to encourage the MOT to provide more than just cost to remediate? Is that what you're looking for?
If I may respond through the chair, so I think that, I don't know if this is purely a letter writing campaign. I'm not sure what the options are. What I'm asking for is maybe a report on how the SRD can help municipalities who have issues on of this, or even just specifically to Zabalis. What are the options of the SRD to help member municipalities when dealing with things that are outside of their boundaries, as this is? I don't know whether the biggest advocacy point would be a letter writing campaign or where to go from here.
Is this not within the boundary of the SRD and affects the SRD? Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Koopman, but my thing was also I would take advantage of putting some signs up with all the traffic you're getting recently.
And the news coverage.
Thank you, and we do
Director-
appreciate the news coverage on the whale that is outside of Zabalis.
We'll go to Mr. Koopman first, and then we'll go to Director Lott.
Through the chair to the board, so just to reiterate, Director Colburn's, we've exhausted all efforts on this. What we need from the board is a collective letter writing to the ministers to please take care of this. The main area of concern on Crown land on the Ministry of Forest Road, we've asked them for money through through emergency management climate readiness. We've offered to spearhead that and take care of the danger trees. They won't even grant us the money to do so. And it's the Ministry of Forests, Ministry of Transportation, and Emergency Management of Climate Readiness. If you've ever seen that meme with the three Spider-Mans pointing at each other, it's essentially that. So we've tried through expenditure authorization forms, we have tried through grants, we have a funded report identifying the danger tree and slope instability of this area. So we've done the work as far as the province will let us take it. They offered over a year ago and said, we believe we should take this from here, and there has been nothing done since then. So we're asking for elevation to the ministerial level at this point from the collective voice of the board.
Thank you. We have Director Lott, then Director Chapman, and then Director Sinnott.
Get through the chair to CAO. What is our role in advocacy for an issue like this, and how effective can we be? Is it even relevant for us to be initiating something like this?
I don't know how effective, if that's a rhetorical question, but, I don't have the answer to that. But, our role is to advocate. Again, we put pressure on our MLAs and our MPs, and that's part of our role to do that. And our success rate varies, right? So it's what we do, and we see what happens after that. So without any guarantees.
Okay, Director Chapman.
Your Worship, I think this is a time we send a delegation from the Regional District Board to Victoria to meet with relevant ministers, maybe in one group, one meeting. And I think that delegation should be the chair of the board, our CAO, and the mayor of Zabalas, and any other mayor that wants to go down to Victoria and thump on the desks as need be.
Thank you, Director Senate, and then Director Chapman.
I think Director
sorry.
Chapman, sorry, thank you, Worship,
You know I love you,
not
Ben.
Worship, thank you, Chair. Jeez, I get so used to it.
I'm having the same problem.
I did the same thing that, well, if you like the title, but you have it otherwise. Yeah, this is exactly what the city of Camp-Rivers decided. We're, 3.5 hours from Victoria? We weren't visiting and now we're visiting, and I think that's where the mayor is going down tonight to visit another minister tomorrow. So definitely it's getting attention and reaction. So definitely I would support that if that comes as a subsequent here.
Okay, Director Lanyon.
Yeah, I'm the same. I support this lobbying effort fully. I'm just curious, do we have an idea of the scale, dollar-wise, of what it would take to do it ourselves?
Sorry, through the chair to Director Young, do we have a cost on what we have a cost of, I believe, about less than $15,000 to take out the danger trees. We haven't done a cost of what it would take, and I'm just talking about the area along the highway that's of concern. So we have a cost of less than $15,000 to remove the danger trees. We haven't identified a cost to remediate and stabilize the slope because the remediation piece isn't even something that's on the table with EMBC right now, our emergency management climate readiness right now. But to also throw out there, did they leave Highway 4 hanging? Is Tofino, Ucluelet, Port Alberni still dealing with this? No, there's nets up. There was slope stability efforts right this second. Why does poor little Zabalas have to still deal with this 5 years later? And to just go back to Director Lott's comments, we never know, but the CAO of Zabalas is on CBC radio today simply because they saw Director Colburn's member report on our agenda and reached out to the CAO, hey, can we chat about this? So
if
we've
it's
already
only
done something.
$15,000, go ahead.
I mean,
Director Lanyon.
the tree is inexpensive and easy to remove, but it's on Crown land, so we probably still need permission, I would assume. And then even more permission for any kind of slope stability. So we can't even take action ourselves, even if we were willing to fund it. So we're hamstrung completely. Yeah.
We've exhausted all options. That's why we're here.
Hey, Director Colburn.
I'm just going to give
Director
a
Rice.
quick analogy. So I live next door to Chair Baker, let's say, and my tree falls into Director Baker's tree falls into my yard. That's Director Baker's responsibility. That's what we're asking for here. We're asking for the province to take the responsibility of the Crown land. I mean, it's not a marketable area. It's not easy falling up there, so it's not marketable wood. So then there's also issues with like regreening and what exactly do they want to do? They just want to leave it sit there. So that's why I'm here.
Yep. Director Rice, and then Director Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment. I remember when this fire happened because I was up there at that time. It's hard to imagine 2018. It's gone like a flash. But why is this still an issue? I know that the amount of times that I've taken either a boat in there or an RV in there, I'm always looking at that section of the road, and it's probably challenging for the other residents. So yes, take a trip to Victoria. I think that's the only way to get things done.
Hey, Director Kerr.
Thank you. I don't know. I think to myself, you just go ahead and do it and send them the bill.
That's what Victoria is doing.
Are you offering as the SRD to do that, Director Kerr? Because we would take it.
Well, to me, there's sometimes you got to, provide leadership and you just do it. And you're going to embarrass them. You're going to embarrass the government. We've done that with the city. We've just said, we're going to go ahead and do this. And they've been on the phone right away because it makes them look so bad. But if you go through this process, believe me, you go down and talk to them. That's all private. It's just going to drag on. It's going to be passed from one ministry to the next. just, I mean, for $15,000, why are we even talking about it? Let's do it.
Well, Director Sinnott, do you have a motion?
Yes, I have a motion. I just wanted to confirm if there was a financial reserve we could.
Still on receipt,
Oh,
sorry.
we're still on receipt? Okay.
All in favor of receipt? All opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. CAO?
Before Director Sinnott says that, no, we don't have a service, we don't have a function, so we'd have to draw it from somewhere else.
Well, normally we do a motion and we say exactly where we're taking the money from. That's what I
Right.
was looking for.
So I'm anticipating you're going to suggest we take $15,000 and we go remove the trees. And where would that money come from? You know, off the top of my head, I suppose.
Electoral areas have a big pool.
Well, it would I guess we could find something within, you know, general admin, but there's no specific service for it. So if you want to make a motion with the intent that it is the board that is going to support the 15,000, that won't be challenging for us to find a service to pull it out of.
Okay. First,
I guess I'll
we'll
make
go
it.
to,
I'd like to hear from Mr. Koopman apparently before I make the motion. You might have some
Yes.
comment.
So that $15,000 is based on the danger tree assessment report from March 2023. That's just shows the extent of dragging out about this process. I wouldn't even feel comfortable moving forward with that report anymore. Things have changed. We would need, and we are just talking about the small section of the highway as the major concern here. If you've been to Zavalis, there's still the whole slope, like that's a bigger piece of the pie. I wouldn't feel comfortable even without proceeding without a brand new danger tree assessment report. But think about the liability piece. We're essentially trespassing on Crown land and property in doing this.
Director Colburn.
If I could just further to that, and also when you're doing works, when you're doing works on that kind of area, it is a trespass. There's archaeological studies that have to be, there's so many hurdles that we've been dealing with this since 2018. And there are still every day, not every day, but consistent rocks falling on the road, in people's backyards. There's trees falling down, there's stumps, there's roots. And it is almost the entirety of the slope behind Zavalis. I would say behind almost 3/4 of the town, if you've ever seen an aerial photo of it. So it's a hazard, and it's not being addressed by the people who are, I mean, we're in the business of keeping our citizens safe. That's what we do. And I thought that was kind of the mandate of the province as well.
And I would just personally be concerned here. If we take the work on ourselves, we're telling the province we're okay with being treated unequal. That you can fix a West Vancouver slope stability issue right away. You can fix a Highway 4 issue right away. You can leave us for 5 years and eventually we will just take care of it ourselves. We don't deserve that. All citizens deserve that equal level of service, in my opinion.
I agree with you, but that's also the media story that comes out of it.
Agreed. Director Kirk?
Thank you. I mean, it seems what I'm hearing is we've got two different issues. We've got an extreme hazard issue, and then we got a general big issue. Okay, we can approach them in two different ways, but I think the extreme issue is one that has gone on for far too long because of this kind of passing the buck around and around and around. And that's the one we can solve. By solving that, on the behalf of the board, I think that'll help with the press from that. It'll help move the other one along, But I mean, there are two different situations.
Okay, Director Lott?
Yeah, my sentimental part goes with Director Kerr. I'd just like to go up there and kick ass, get it done, because I'm really frustrated with what I've heard here and angry about it. But the practical side of me, the logical, intellectual side of me says, well, what is our legal liability if we go into a property that's not in our jurisdiction, it's Crown land, and we're trespassing on that? What if we do execute and there's subsequent problems to that, somebody gets hurt, injured, and we get sued because of our involvement there. We created some sort of additional hazard. And I'm really concerned about, just a reactionary approach to this. It doesn't seem like it's very well thought out. It seems like it's very reactionary. And I'm really concerned about the risks that we're putting the SRD at, the liability we're putting at, and whether or not we're even going to be effectual. Because once we go up there and we do that, like they said, they may take it two ways. They may be embarrassed and want to respond to it, or they may be pissed off and saying, now we're going to deliberately frustrate the process or complicate the process, So I would be very reluctant to move forward with any type of initiative that hasn't been thoroughly thought out, vetted, at least had some sort of a legal opinion approach to it, some consultation so that we know what the risks are to the SRD if we took this type of what I would consider cowboy rogue action, just to satisfy the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking of crafting is you need a briefing note when you go down to the minister, and you have to have sort of an outcome that you wish. And it sounds like from Mr. Koopman that we also need some further study and action. Support with everything that's going on. So here's a proposed motion off the top of my head. That the board hereby authorize the chair, the CAO, and any appointees they wish to set a delegation to the province, the relevant ministries, and the ministers, together with the right, I guess it's the right of the board to come, the right of the, I'm trying to think how to do this. Do you have a suggestion, Mr. Koopman, which would be, like, would be good?
Oh, I will refer that one to Mr. Yates all day long.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because we don't have a budget, but I think I'll leave it at that right now, but I would invite us to have an interim meeting called on a special basis if we need to expedite matters.
Mr. Chairman, if forced to add my 2 cents, I would say if the board is comfortable sending a delegation to Victoria, that would be a start. And that would be informative as well in terms of further actions to be taken, if any. So that would be my perspective on it.
Thank you. That would be it then.
I'll second that.
Second, sorry? There's no motion on the floor.
I just made a motion. I take we're talking about receiving Director Colburn's report as a matter of order.
That was done.
That was done.
Question was called on receipt. So we had the second motion that you just made, correct?
Correct.
And we had a second, which was Director Chapman. Discussion? Director Colburn.
I would support that and thank you, because really the motion that I was going to make is that the SRD supported the Village of Zabalas in petitioning the minister. So this takes that a step further, and I thank you for that.
Okay. Anybody else? Director Chapman?
I think, Chair, it'd be up to you to invite our MLA to meet you down in Victoria with the relevant ministers and take her along and have her face some music too.
And I would perhaps suggest you also include any relevant First Nations who are impacted by the road access. We find that to be usually very effective.
Agreed.
It's interesting considering that the nations that are affected, some of them live right underneath that slope, and we're part of the evacuation. So.
Yeah, the motion covers all those details. So all in favor? Can I read it back? I didn't write it down.
The motion is to authorize the SRD, CO and chair and other relevant folks to meet with the province, the MLA and First Nations to discuss the slope stability issue.
Okay, so all in favor? What, sorry? Oh, Director Davis?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just want to say, like, the Village of Tassos could easily be in a very similar situation. We've done slope studies, and we have equally unstable slopes. The only difference is we haven't had a recent fire up there, but we do know that very large boulders have come down on our town in the past before it was built. So If this passes and there's a delegation, I'd like to be part of it. Thanks.
Okay, all in favor, Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. My question was, it sounded like there's maybe 3 different ministries that are the Spider-Man pointing at each other. And I was just wondering if all 3 of those ministries are going to be visited, or if we're going to ask to have them all in the same room, or if how that was going to be managed with this
I
motion.
think what we'll do, Mr. Chair, if I may, is consult with the Zabalas mayor and CEO and get direction from them, because they've had the most communication, I think, and they'll know who would be the most effective. So I think getting all 3 in the room would be a miracle. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but.
I was going to suggest we ask them to camp out for 24 hours underneath the trees and the boulders and see how comfortable they feel after that.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, management, new business. Director Rice, you have new business. Do you want to go into closed session for that? No? That's new business. I don't have liquor.
We have.
Yeah, we have an addendum item.
Oh, yes, down lower. Yeah.
But yes, the new business should go into in camera.
Deal with the quadrilinks and then go into closed session.
Okay, do you want to deal with the Quadrilinks liquor license before we go into closed? Yeah. Okay. Quadrilink, you said it, application that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Wally, Director Lott, discussion. Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff for the quick turnaround on posting and sharing the notice and bringing the report back 1 month later. And Chair, I have a subsequent following the motion in B.
Okay, all in favor of receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Did you like to read that, Director Mawhinney?
I certainly can. That the application by Quadrilinks Limited for a structural change to its liquor license be recommended for approval on the basis that there is overwhelming support for the amendment from local community members.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. We're going into in camera, no, you have a subsequent? Let's hear it.
Thank you, Chair. I've been wondering if it makes sense for SRD staff to be expending time on gathering engagement on liquor license referrals, as this is not an area we regulate and have no particular expertise in, other than the expertise of community engagement. So I have a motion, which is that staff prepare policy on liquor license referrals for the board's consideration.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Director Chapman is opposed. The motion is carried.
Thank you.
And what section are we going into in camera? 90-1.
It's Director Rice's.
The section dealing with possibility of property acquisition, I think is one. There may be others as well.
Okay, but we don't need to,
I would have to look to see what section that is.
we don't need to.
91, something or other. Section
So we're going into 91 something or another. E. According to our Director Lanyon, it's E. Okay, so we're now going,
Did you just make that up?
no. Okay, so let's move into in camera.